Join us for a review of the Peugeot E208 GT. Let's go! The new generation of the Peugeot 208 is available both with combustion engines and as all-electric, the one we have right here. And the design difference is not too big actually. It's just that here the electric version then also has the same color here in the front grille with these vertical dots, let's call them that way, as the rest of the body paint. And I think that looks really very interesting. Vertigo blue is the color for today, a true Thomas blue as we call it right here. 4 meters 02, 13 foot 2 or 158 inches is the length of the 208. And we can see here in this GT trim car we have 17-inch wheels. They also come in this somewhat aerodynamic design, and the GT trim also comes with wider wheel arches, and they are also here then in the shiny black. So it's very prominent, the cladding here. Is it too much or do you think it's okay? Please leave us your comments. Then also black mirror caps here as a contrast. The lower part is also in the shiny black, but then the upper part is just this plain plastic. Yeah, I think maybe in this GT trim it could have been all around the frames. In the rear we once again have this lion claw design for the tail lamps and nice black contrast in the upper and in the lower part. Once again the GT line here with the badge, and on the logo once again it's like an EV mark where the Peugeot Lion has a different color nuance right there. So overall I think a very modern and likable design. This electric motor delivers 136 horsepower to the front axle in the sport mode, in the normal mode, and even less in the eco mode. Then the horsepower output will be reduced a little bit for more eco driving. 260 Newton meters of torque maximum. 8.1 seconds is the acceleration figure to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And the top speed, by the way, would be 150 kilometers, so that's around 90 miles per hour. And recharging, still wet from cleaning. So 11 kilowatt AC, and for a small vehicle still offers DC charging, and that is then up to 100 kilowatt. And a realistic range figure if you use this car in the eco mode and also don't use the acceleration pedal that often, you can score some 330 kilometers or 200 miles. That would be more like the maximum range you can score. Of course it will go down if you drive in a sports mode or if you go for a high-speed motorway part, for example. So let's get inside. And the thing is, it's a very small car, and sometimes I do have problems in small cars when you're 1.86 m or 6'1", when I have the seat in the lowest position. Here there's still some headroom left, no problem. There is this special or unique cockpit layout. Steering wheel can be put in and out, up and down. Very small steering wheel, and always now a little bit tricky now with the looks, because I need to put the steering wheel up if I would put it more down, and it would come very close to the legs. But when I put it up, then it comes really close in the line of sight to the instruments. Soon more details about these 3D instruments. This again, the top spec we have here in the GT trim. Yeah, but I think it still somehow works, and it's decently comfortable here indeed on these seats. So because they're a little bit more voluminous and they're quite big in this sporty trim, and once again with the nice microfiber material, this, feels really high class. So here this top setup, 12.3-inch digital instruments on the left and 10-inch on the right. First of all, to these, soon more details of that, but just a quick look. I put the steering wheel down for that. You can have different modes where you have different visualizations in there, so then you can individualize your style a little bit. We'll soon also show you another close-up of the GPS screen. This is where the batteries are also being placed right there. Interesting. That doesn't look too weird. I put the steering wheel up again. On the steering wheel here, on the left side, you would, for example, pick a radio station and so on, pick up the phone. Left side then to change the digital instruments and also sound control. Then on the right side, you have the top screen here in this GT version, very horizontal style. The soft touch top dashboard, soon more details to that screen here. By the way, it's always a nice trick to use 3 fingers and then you get to a hidden main menu. In the lower part, you do still have some hotkeys, some capacitive buttons to change something in the infotainment screen, and then hard buttons here, for example, for the headlights, for the central lock of the vehicle, for example, and still a normal volume knob. That's good to have, but no manual AC unit. Apple CarPlay integration looks like this, and the sound here is actually quite decent for a small vehicle, so can't complain about that. And most of the time I would run it in the CarPlay mode anyway, or Android Auto if you have an Android phone, because it's just easier to use. The rest of the infotainment system is not too easy to use actually. Here once again the 3-finger trick to get to this main menu, and then you can access the Apple CarPlay, for example, or the climate function like this. And this is the way you have to then adjust the climate right here with the strength and also with the temperature. Is not a real easy solution, especially while driving. This can be distracting. However, you could use voice command.
To begin, say a command after the tone.
Increase temperature.
Temperature changed.
So this would work, but I think it's always easier when we would have a separate knob. And the digital instruments here in this top trim in a 3D style. So you can also see it a little bit on camera. They have like 2 different layers, and it's very interesting because it's projected from the top part here. So very interesting technology. So yeah, it looks very fancy. Also, you can see the GPS integration here in the middle. And then you can also, of course, switch some of the information around. This new generation of the 208 just available with 5-door. Most manufacturers do that nowadays. Of course, also hardback here, but that's no wonder in this segment. And you have the same beautiful grey microfiber design here in the rear. But the question is, what about the legroom? Of course, it's better than in the previous generation, but it's a small car segment, and yeah, that doesn't really work for me unless we would put the front seat a little bit higher. Then I could actually fit in this recess here, with the knees. So if you think about when you have tall people in the rear, put the front seat a little higher, then it exactly works. Headroom-wise, also indeed exactly works. That just fit in here. And then it's quite okay. Once again, it's nothing for 5 adults. But it would work. Again, put the front seat a little bit higher, then it's still okay. So I think the usage of space, exterior, interior relation is very good. What about the boot space? Well, since this platform here was planned from the beginning on to be used with combustion and electric drive, you don't have a compromise as for the legroom, or height in the rear, and also not in the boot. So 265 liters. Here at the moment, the only compromise is that we have to transport the cables, but this is now for the charging station. In this bag here, we have a cable then for the household plug. But of course, this you would rather leave at home, and then you could put this cable in this bag, and then it's rather clean then for the trunk. Yeah, I think then we can live with that. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Peugeot e-208, and let's start sporty. Let's go to the sports mode and see the instant acceleration of this electric vehicle. Plop, that's almost 80 kilometers an hour. So really good in the acceleration, very powerful, and that's so cool about the electric vehicles. You have almost the instant torque. Is a lot of fun, and yet again so silent. Here the full power output in the sports mode. See also steering wise, you don't have too much feel actually in the steering, but it feels go-kart alike, it feels arcade alike, like in a computer game. So yeah, it's not a natural feeling, but it's somehow still fun. This unique cockpit layout that counts both for the combustion engine version and for the EV. However, here the EV to me still more fun because you have the instant torque, and driving silently is just feels more suitable to this vehicle. On the one hand, you have this silent power. On the other hand, you have this silent serenity. And for example, here, traffic light jumps to red. Just go on brakes. Everything is silent. Besides a garbage truck passing us, but I mean, this is just a cool feeling. When you're stuck in traffic, I mean, you just release the brake a little bit, then it rolls forward, has this, this creeping effect. And that's so cool here about the electric version of the 208. So I really have to say, even if you've just driven a few meters, you so much more enjoy the EV version of the 208 if you compare it to the combustion engine. Here in the sports mode, once again, the acceleration is quite nice. And noise insulation here at lower speeds is also just fine. When we compare the driving modes, by the way, here in the normal, steering-wise, sports, steering-wise, there's a little difference. So in sports mode gives a little bit more resistance, but it's not the biggest difference, I can say. Because the car is so small and the center of gravity is really low, it also feels, once again, so sporty, really a lot of fun in handling. And once again, the electric version is heavier, but still feels sportier because of the lower center of gravity. And sometimes even suspension-wise, I have the feeling that when I drive the EV versions of the car, it somehow also feels better suspension-wise, Sometimes this increased weight can do a little bit better for the car, and this is also a very interesting finding, definitely. So cruising it around in the city, it's really very cool. I mean, it's a very, very short vehicle, so finding a parking spot and so on is also very easily done. That's also why I would go for the small EV. And of course then, for the price. When you approach like this chicane, you always enjoy that you have something like this. You can once again go once more to the sports mode. Here now to acceleration 40 to 70, but uphill. Plop, that's it. And you see, even if we're going uphill, no problem, no effort at all. In the normal driving mode, told you earlier, the horsepower output is a little bit reduced and the throttle input as well. And in the eco mode, what happens there? Even more throttle input reduced, horsepower output reduced, and also the thermal comfort is reduced. It also tells you in the gauge. We have the AC on. I still feel it's cold, but the thing is that the AC is a little bit less strong than. Again, there is still cold air coming, so it's not that it's off. It's just a little bit more efficient then. So in this eco mode, you can also tune your range, and it indeed also changes the range that is being displayed right there. This car does come with a heat pump as standard. What does it do? So when you have, when you have the AC, or when you have very cold days, for example, especially, then it is more efficient. So it doesn't make the range longer at all. But when you're, for example, driving this car at cold days and use the heating, then it will reduce the reduction in range. You know what I mean? So the range drop won't be as harsh as it would be without the heat pump. Therefore, it's definitely very important to have that here in an electric vehicle. It works like a fridge in a reverse way then, so to speak. Here's some countryside driving, enjoying that. The suspension is, you do feel that when you have some bumps in the road, so it's not the most forgiving suspension. So, you know, there was this pneumatic suspension by Citroën once back in the days, but the modern French cars are not the best as for suspension. That's not their focus. It's more about like this, you know, very special design, for example. And of course, very cool, if you were, for example, skeptical about the engines by the French manufacturers, but again, Peugeot also scored very good reliability ratings recently. But even if you would be skeptical about the combustion engine from a certain country or brand or so, I mean, this is now the electric vehicle, and this is always, let's say, easier. It can, you know, less can break. The electric motors are all very, very reliable. There's hardly any problems with electric vehicles that the motors break. And maybe then, you know, just after like a very, very long mileage and so on. So let's see, we are in the eco mode once again, and I mean, yes, the throttle input is reduced a little bit. Let's test that here when I'm eco mode and hammer it all the way through. Still spontaneous somewhat, and then sports mode. Yeah, I feel I get more boost, but I wouldn't say that when you're in the eco mode you cannot drive this car in a fast way. So even if you are in the when you are in the eco mode, you still get a decent punch. So that's always nice, because you might want to drive it in eco mode to have good, you know, good figure here for the kilowatt-hour consumption. But then sometimes you might need some acceleration, spontaneous acceleration or so, and then you still have it even if you are in the eco mode. So that's not something you can, you shouldn't care about that. Now to our conclusion for today with the Peugeot e-208. First of all, two things from the driving part directly. This rattling at the window was indeed caused by the camera mount. So the playing together with the mount and the weight that was applied on the window obviously didn't play around well. But then without the mount there was no rattling sound, so also a good result as for that. Then the energy consumption. In a test we reset the meter for that, and then just went straight rather with not too high speeds, and we could score some 14 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, and that would indeed lead to a range of about 330 kilometers or 200 miles at a more optimum level at decent temperatures and also not too high speed. If you use this car then higher speed on the motorway, or if the temperatures are really low, then the range figure will also drop down. You have to keep that in mind. In general, the exterior, a very likable vehicle, sporty style, a modern style, great vertical blue color here, of course, Thomas Blue. So I think is a very nice small vehicle. As for design, the interior design is very unique in the segment with this Peugeot iCockpit. Also unique feature with the 3D instruments, and a great design job here for the seats, which have the special grey microfiber then in the GT trim when you go for the electric version. Here and there the interior build quality can be stepped up, of course, a little bit, but then I have to think about the segment as well. So here and there some hard plastic use which could be a little bit nicer. Then of course also the temperature control. If you go 22 degrees Celsius and leave it on automatic mode, you wouldn't care. But for everyone who wants to control something of the AC unit, then of course it gets complicated, especially by driving. The GPS, the navigation is also not too easy to use. Most of the time you would rather go then probably with the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto connection. Driving wise, suspension is not the best as for forgiving the bumps, so this could be something to improve. Other than that, it's really a very fun ride. The steering could be a little bit more natural in the feeling. Yet again, it has a very unique feeling. It has a computer game, arcade style feeling. So it's a lot of fun to drive this vehicle, especially in the electric version. So this lower center of gravity and this added weight, I think really does the car very well. So it feels very, very sporty, even sportier than the combustion engine version. If you compare it to the previous version, the 208 in general drives sportier now, that too to mention. And definitely this car as the EV version, the best pick you can have. And also a decent battery size, definitely for this very segment. Overall, I think for the small car segment, one of the best offerings at the moment in the small EV market. What's your take on that? Please leave us your comments. I'll also see you at one of our other reviews.